Hi everybody, my name is Ellen Piercy and I am going to talk to you about finding, losing and adapting adventures. So for me it started probably in my late 30s. I thought I was too old to start doing adventures, and then I started meeting other people and realizing that actually no, maybe I hadn't missed this opportunity. And I started to sort of think about things I might want to do. And one of the things I went and did is I went and cycled part of the Camino de Santiago. Um, Took my bike, went with my husband, and we had an amazing time. And I discovered that actually I could do these sorts of things, and this is something that I might want to do a bit more of. So. Um, and of course, when you come back from these sorts of adventures, sometimes you can start to feel a little bit of the post-adventure blues. So the what next? I didn't have anything planned. So my husband bought me, which actually is quite a key to this whole adventure plan, a felt penguin, which was named Isabella Bird, the penguin of future adventures. And I had the penguin with me in my bag when I went to Yestival in 2017, which hopefully a good few got a chance to go to those. And if there are any coming up in the future, then I absolutely recommend going, although they're very, very dangerous places because you do end up coming up with cunning plans and going off and doing crazy things. So, as a lot of these things also happen, uh, I was standing in the drinks queue, chatting to a guy who I'd met the year before, talking about where we've been and what we've been doing, and how I was feeling a little bit as though I needed to do something else, but I wasn't really sure what. I had no idea what I might want to do next. Um, and he said, well, it's obviously got to be a cold adventure or the penguin can't go. So that sparked a bit of a seed. Okay, so now I've reduced this down to something smaller, which is a good thing because I'm not great with heat. That's certainly one thing I found on the Camino is on the hotter days, I found that a bit harder. So I thought, yep, this feels as though this could be good. Um, so where's a cold adventure? Well, that leaves extreme north, extreme south, or up high. So that started to give me some motivation to really think about, so what do I do to train, what I might want to do, and set myself a bit of a target that for me, I'm a bit of a hitchhiker's fan. So the number 42, the answer to life, the universe, and everything. I'm 42 at the moment. I'll be 43 in a couple of weeks' time. So it's like, right, 42, I'm going to do a big adventure. So that now I had a time and I had some direction. So now that gave me the motivation to start thinking about, right, I need to get fit for that. What do I do? So um, working with all the various wonderful people that are part of my life. So I've got a personal trainer, Joe Bridge, who made me do awful things up and down hills and pulling weights and things like that. Went out with my climbing club, Chester Mountaineering Club, a lot. Talked to lots of people about what I might want to do. So I'm a member of things like the Tough Girl Tribe, but obviously the Yes Tribe as well. And if you're planning an idea, then tap into that network because there are so many people who have done a little bit similar to what you might want to do. And they can really point you into directions of where you might want to go or divert you into something completely that you'd never thought of you might want to try. So started to really build this up and set myself a goal that by, again, the Yestival of 2018, I would have made my mind up as to what I wanted to do. So that gave me 12 months of looking for something to do, generally getting fitter and stronger, and start to think, well, if it's cold, what do maybe do I want to do something that's competitive? I don't really like that sort of thing. So it's not a competition. South, by this point, I'd realised as much as I would love to go to Antarctica, it was probably out of my price range. So that leaves high or north. And I started to narrow it down. I entered something called there was a Fjallraven competition to do a dog sled expedition. So I thought, oh, brilliant, I'll try that. I put a profile together. I got I got friends and family to vote for me on that. Little clue, if you're ever trying to get people to vote for you on these sorts of things, and you're on LinkedIn, have a professional network on LinkedIn, it's amazing how none of my ex-colleagues seem to want to send me to the Arctic tundra. So that's definitely something to tap into if you need big numbers of people. So did that, started to talk to other people, and this is where Svalbard started to come onto my radar of what I might want to be able to do. Spoke to some people who'd been there and decided, yes, this is it. So Yestival 2018, stood up on stage, declared to the world, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Svalbard, and I'm going to do a crossing of Svalbard. So that was it. So I then had a time frame. I now knew specifically what I was doing. So again, it's that working towards a goal. There's some mental toughness training I was doing as well. Sort of how do I build up that resilience as well as the physical stuff too. So part of what I needed to do was, in order to go on this expedition, is I needed to gain some really, really relevant skills. And the only way you're going to do that is by actually going out on skis, pulling a pulk, camping, and understanding exactly what it might be like to be in those extremes of temperature. So I went with the company that I was due to go to Svalbard with, Newland. And they run this polar training expedition on the Hardangervidda Plateau in Norway, which, if I wasn't already bouncing around with excitement like Tigger beforehand, once I was there and doing this, this was brilliant. It was every bit as good as I expected it to be, but also really tough at times because I struggled with the pulk going downhill. I spent more time on my bum than I did actually upright. But again, over the course of that week, I built up that confidence. I knew that my tent craft skills were good enough. I knew that I was actually on the flat, I was fine. It was just a few little tweaks that I needed to try and get right with myself. I had issues with the boots. So I'd got plans in place to how do I deal with that, because my feet were slightly too small for one type of boot, but slightly too big for another type of boot. And the kit that you take is very, very highly specialized. So the skiing is Nordic. Nordic skiing. It's free heel. You have the big polar boots that you need to wear. So it's all quite important to make sure you're able to manage this effectively. How to deal with things like hypothermia, how to buddy with the person, your tent mate, to make sure that your skin isn't exposed, and also understanding what you need to do for polar bears. Now, we would obviously be going with guides who have the experience, but we would have to do polar bear watch. So we were taught the things that we need to look out for. Lots of reassurance from Helen. That's Helen demonstrating what a polar bear looks like when it's standing on its back legs, although quite a lot taller. And all of this was wrapped up in meeting some amazing people, met some people who were due to go on the same expedition. We ended up having a fire on the plateau on the last night, overlooking just the most amazing mountain scenery. So I was absolutely fired up for this. And as we were packing down, got back to the lodge where we were staying to collect our kit and sort ourselves out, really started to hear news of this virus that was starting to become a bit of a problem globally. And of course, story we all know pretty well now. Once I got back, I began to realise about a month before I was due to depart that it was now getting quite risky, that this was going to get cancelled. Svalbard is an island a very long way from anywhere else, and they were one of the first places to shut down because they just didn't have the hospital capacity to deal with visitors who may come and with the infection. And it's a very, very long way to get them back down to somewhere safe they can be dealt with. So I knew probably about 3 weeks before I was due to actually go that it was off. I went into slightly sort of, okay, how do we sort this out mode? I transferred my my refund straight onto the deposit for next year. So I am due to go next year. But I found that for me, there is still this massive uncertainty of, well, it could be cancelled again. You know, what happens? This thing is sort of completely beyond my control, and I found it very hard to motivate myself to do anything, to have any sort of goal as to what I might want to do, the places that I really wanted to go to, the plans that I was going to have. So I sort of planned a whole, where everything was pre and post Svalbard, that I'd come back and I'd work out, what do I do next? And so all that is put on hold again. So I realized I needed to do something that gives me something to keep going, but also has to be cheap because I've got an awful lot of Arctic kit up in the attic. It needed to be something that was COVID proof, so it's close to home. It's something that keeps me training, so it can't be a completely new skill, because I need to keep going with something that trains me for the expedition and maintain the fitness that I've got. So that's where I came up with the Cheshire Challenge. So I live in Cheshire, and I volunteer for something called the Slow Ways Project, which is a brilliant project. If have a search for it, looking at connecting up footpaths within the whole of Britain. And I just thought, well, I wonder what's around me. And a quick search on the Long Distance Walkers Association site, I realised that within a 20-mile radius of my front door, there are 22 named paths in Cheshire. And they total 1,394 kilometres. So suddenly, ting, there we go. And I get to do a spreadsheet as well. So that is exactly what I've started to do. I listed them all. I've looked at what routes I can do. This is going to take me a long time, because also it's a great thing to do with friends. So I'm doing lots of loops, because obviously at the moment you can't car share. So linear routes are a bit more challenging to do unless I'm doing them on my own or I'm doing with households. So I'm adding in paths that aren't part of the challenge, but that's not the point. The point is I'm slowly ticking off the miles along these routes. I'm 3.5% of the way through it. I think it's probably going to take me about 6 years at that rate to finish it. But it's fantastic, and it's on my doorstep. And suddenly I've got some motivation back. And that worry of what happens next year with Svalbard is very much lessened. So that's sort of what summing up what I've done is had this amazing adventure dealing with the disappointment by finding something else that is manageable, I'm a bit more in control of, but still is taking me forward on that journey. So yeah, so absolutely. If anybody wants to follow me, I have a blog which I occasionally write, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. So yeah, if you want to find out a bit more about what I'm doing, then yeah, it'd be lovely to support you. So thank you very much, everybody.